balance. One of the things I love to do is cook. It's because I feel like I do a lot of male stuff. But when it comes to nurturing, when I start doing the nurturing part, there's a balance that takes place. And it doesn't necessarily drive us into this gender issue. What's happening in our culture on this cosmology, this top layer of the two-legged, is that there's a lot of tension there. There's a lot of tension that has been created by colonization. Is that focus? There we go. You got to have the right lenses. So a predatory has siloed lenses. It's round. But a herbivore, one that is looking from side to side, which is part of our indigenous culture, it's looking from side to side. I bet you these indigenous people have already figured your image out pretty quickly. I'll give you an example. It's kind of an example of Joyce and I's marriage. I help her see things that she doesn't see, and vice versa. So I told her, I'll be by the side of the road. I got a flat tire. I don't have a spare. I'm right by the Joe Milo's trading post, and I'll be waving my hands on the side of the road. You'll see me, and you can stop. So she's driving along, and she's looking straight ahead. So some of you females have that issue. It's like you're looking so straight ahead, siloed into what it is you want to do for that day. You have this kind of to-do list. She does that. She has it on her table. I don't, because I have a problem with lists, because at the end of the day, if I don't fulfill all that list, I'm going to have a problem with myself. So what I try to do in the morning is, what energy am I bringing to the farm? What energy am I bringing to the garden? What am I stepping into today that I need to receive, not seize the day? You understand that? Not seize the day, but receive the day. So these are indigenous concepts that I'm giving you that I think we're missing in this part of colonized education. We've been colonized from a very young age. So now we have to decolonize ourselves and get into this mode of nurturing and this relationship with the earth. So the sheep is looking from side to side, and the extractor or the predatory culture is looking to see what they can extract. What's that guy's name, that crippled guy, that scientist that was in a wheelchair that passed away? What's it? Yeah, Stephen Hawking. I always forget his name, but he said if there's some aliens that are looking to make contact with us, they asked him, should we have that conversation with these aliens? He said no, because they're looking for places to colonize and extract. Interesting, isn't it? Guess Elon Musk is sending his rockets into space, looking probably for some more minerals.
I think too, when you want to really move into natural growing, garden healthy soil, you have to really begin to start looking with those observation lenses, because now you have to observe what's going on with the plants or the animals, and how can you incorporate natural solutions and to create, instead of going out and importing synthetic stuff, how do you use nature solutions to start becoming what you're going to do?
Yeah, next slide kind of explains it, what we're talking about. This is something of a sand painting that I'm working on. It's like a pendulum swinging back and forth, and I think there's another pendulum this way, from doing to spiritual depth. But this pendulum is sort of an epistemology, a system, worldview system, which is what lenses are you looking through. And you look at the settler culture, which are now in charge of conservation and natural systems, which they themselves don't have the premise to even begin to talk about indigeneity. and they're in charge, and they're the government, it just, to me, it just collapses my reality. It's what you call a trickster spirit, which is that they do opposites so that you can see a crooked line and know how to be a straight line. Tricksters is found in a lot of indigenous communities. It's a cultural shrink that comes in and shows you in an image, and you see it, and hey, we shouldn't be doing that. They'll walk backwards. There's a story up in the. You guys enjoying this?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
good.
yes.
In the UPEC, my background is in anthropology. And anthropology was really to go into other cultures and tell the colonizers what resources they have available. And they call it anthropology. And we can go in and just kind of push them out of the way and then get the resources. So that's the background I'm from. But in the UPEC, they do that. Is it the UPEC or another tribe? I got to be correct on that. They do the trampoline. You put somebody on there. Well, the trickster, the clown, came in and he started doing some stuff. There were 2 tourists there with the cameras and their outfits, their regalia. They'd come in, and everybody in that community was watching this trickster do all kinds of funny stuff. And the people are just laughing and laughing. Ha, 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 ha. That's not what we're supposed to do. Ha, ha, ha. But the outsiders are just kind of looking, and these guys are kind of weird, What's up with them? We came here to take photos. And so they were doing that. And finally, towards 3 or 4 o'clock in the evening, the trickster did something that was funny to them. And the 2 outsiders laughed. After they laughed, then they began the ceremonies. Indigenous people in front of you have been doing this all along. They're not pushers. They don't want to come in and be presumptive. They have been doing this agriculturally in front of us all along the Southwest. The religion is connected to this very complex appeasement or nature building concept of connectedness. So the religion becomes very complex. And the reason why it's so complex is because the brittle environment, the environment in which we in Albuquerque and Las Cruces and other southwestern regions, we have to really, like Joyce mentioned, observe and listen and get down to these sort of a faith-based religious activity that ties us into this fractal spiritual intelligence that the colonization has taken out. And what the colonizers are saying is that those ethics and spirituality are not important. Those aren't sacred things. And we've been told a lie. When in reality, when we observe and we connect, we realize how fragile these ecosystems are, how connected we need to be in our approach, in our hearts and our minds, that we shouldn't just blast into it and start, giving what we think it needs, but to just listen. Sometimes it's just good to lay on the ground in your garden and say, hey, little buggies, what do you guys need? Or the weeds are talking to you, hey, this surface is contaminated, especially with Canadian thistle. I've seen when we were in Utah, the Canadian thistle were growing really high. I said, you guys are good Canadian thistle growers. And I said to them, you know why those Canadian thistles? The weeds are speaking to you, I said. It's telling you that it's toxic. Because that's what... Kale. Don't buy any kale in a grocery store because it detoxifies the soil. Make sure it's in good soil. And of course, Joyce will scare you for that. But mechanical, industrial, conventional farming mindset, I think, therefore I am. Who's that philosopher?
Descartes.
Descartes, yeah. Who was his buddy that that implemented operationally? Bacon, Francis Bacon. You know who Francis Bacon went after? Women healers. And it was really the start of this mechanical rollout of white men being in charge and making everything mechanical. Everything that we're looking through the lenses of mechanical. That's scary.
White men have been in charge a lot longer than
I know, but not to the level of really getting the whole industrial system going. And that industrial system is this mindset of monocropping, nature's to be controlled, dual Platonic thought too, if you really drop it down into some philosophical, theological discussion to separate spiritual and physical, when in reality indigenous people sees it as a whole. Currency-based economy, food becomes a commodity as well as land, now water, now relationships. A lot of things are commoditized. And just think of it this way, commodity is on top right now, but the bottom side of the opposite of commodity is community. So that's something I keep reminding myself. How does this apply to community? And I love what they're doing here, is that their farm is not just for themselves, for the community, right? Community. It's production heavy. A lot of farmers I talk to, gardeners, are so production heavy that they'll do whatever it takes to contaminate their soil so that more foods can come out of it. When in reality, if you amend your soil and go back to the natural mimicking Mother Nature, production goes way up. Because that's just nature. Nature is complex. Nature knows more than us. It's the creator, you know? It's Yeshua. It's the things that really are found in many, many cultures, is that this great fractal system that gets us into this deep, deep sense of what the sage do when they meditate is they enter into this space of sacredness. So that when they look through their lenses, they're doing some different stuff than what is traditionally known to do. So substantial inputs, tractors, you name it, cars, dense disturbance, really going in there and plowing the heck out of it. We own the land, where on the other side, the land owns us. And that concept right there, philosophically, do you own the property there, or does it own you? And if you change that, if we look at time too, penetrating time from a Hellenized version, I'm throwing a lot of philosophy because of my background is philosophy, you know, because I think that's really the basis of all the ologies. That's where it started from, this really discussion around the coffee, saying, oh, okay, is that how you approach marriage? But philosophically, you look at a lot of these different dimensions of time. I was talking to a medicine man over in, where was it? What's that? Hubble Trading Post. And a medicine man was there, you know, we were talking, and says, how can us native people keep up with our prayers if we're driving 65, 75 miles an hour, when as regular indigenous people, the fastest prayers is the speed of our run, or the speed of our walk. And then, so I thought, oh man, I got something to share. You know, it's like, so I went to Winter Rock, and I was sitting working for managed care and sitting behind a desk, and I started discussing this thing with this medicine man. Another medicine man, the second medicine man. And I said, well, we penetrate time, how are we keeping up with our prayers? You know, just kind of nudge him a little bit, see how medicine man-ish he is. And he goes, no, that's not our native you. Okay, what's your native you? And he goes, time rolls on us. And are we at peace? See, the penetrating time, linear, versus that of time rolling like a rug, rolling on us, and is our space in shalom, in peace. Are we at peace, keeping chaos in check? So when time, or the activities of the daily activities, if we prepared ourselves, we meditated, then when it rolls on us, we're in the right space. Oh man, it's like, wow, this is so cool. And I've been using that ever since. We own the land owns us, it's commons. I'll talk a little bit about this, and I'll let Joyce begin to take over, which she usually does anyways. Sorry. That whole perspective of commons, we saw the land as commons, that all indigenous people would share, different tribes. And it was really a protocol of trade systems. I was talking to some Mexican activists, they were fighting for rights on the farm, and they were talking about, this immigration policy is just terrible. I said, we didn't have it until the colonizers came in. To us, we saw it as migration. It's migratory paths, these roads. Have you heard of the word frontier and wilderness? We don't have such a word in the indigenous community. Why? Because it was never a frontier to us. It was never a wilderness to us. It was our homeland. We named the mountains, we named the roads, we named the, there was commerce going on, trade exchanges happening. But for somebody to say, I discovered you guys, come on, figure that out, you all. So commons is viewed as everybody sharing, but when the first founding fathers, you guys don't mind throwing stuff back at you? The founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, used to watch the native people governing themselves. They used to call them the noble savage. If you see the early paintings of the Iroquois, the beaded scroll they would bring out, and says, "We the people." Why do you think the president's called commander-in-chief? Why do you think the Mohawks, the colonists dressed up as Mohawks, the executive branch, and did the Boston Tea Party? Taxation without representation. So they marked out the word out there in the pursuit of land, marked it out and said, this is too abrupt. We'll call it the pursuit of happiness. All this is historically, depending on which lenses you're looking through. We've been blindsided by the idea of Americans. The word American actually comes as a slang term from the Brits, calling us those Indians. So the word that came out, no, not American Vespucci, but the Brits would say, those are Americans, or those Indians, those lowlifes, destitutes, colonists, They'd call them Americans, so we're Americans, right? And this whole concept of immigration, all that was inside the 6 nations of the Iroquois, that they displayed a sense of a republic. But they always sensed that if it's not a republic, meaning the buck stops with the elders, if it moves into democracy, which I think is starting to happen, the swing, you're going to get a lot of this stuff, which I have another set of circumstances in terms of political systems that I'm looking at. And I'm realizing that we're headed for civil war in this country. All the researchers and journalists that have studied civil wars in other countries, they have a checklist. This will require that kind of environment, that kind of situation, to where there's going to be more civil unrest. And we marked off every one of them already. Every country that is now in civil war is because of democracy. Put that in your little Americanism. We scoop, and the most stable countries are the dictators. And you know, the folks that want to control, there seem to be a little bit more stability. But on the flip side, it really is an experiment. It really is a sense. But when the settlers came over, what we're missing is this picture of what was really happening in agriculture. In Europe, what was happening was all these farm slaves were being shipped over to the Americas. They had all this sort of post-traumatic stress disorder inside them of being abused and mistreated, and they come over, and as soon as they hit this ground, they start mistreating other peoples that are not like them. And so in this commons of land that the indigenous people, that's really our downfall. We saw land as commons, but the settlers saw it as possession. And in this possession, all this energy, negative energy, started plowing into people of color. And this sense of a settler community was to dominate the land, manifest destiny, create images so that they can create policies around it. And it's now just not happening to us, it's happening to you through the food system, the agriculture. So these people that were farm slaves came over, they became landowners. And they started treating the workers as slaves. And we're still there. We haven't gone beyond that. We're still, agriculture is one of the highest employee of slaves. We don't pay our farm workers enough. It's hard work. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, backyard gardening is really what I'm excited about, is because you all are taking this energy and saying, hey, we don't want to be colonized. We don't want to be told a lie, and we want to change. We want to change. Let's take a break, and then we'll get into the next session. You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Throwing a lot of stuff at you.